"I want to withdraw $1 million, the old man said, his hands dirty with earth. The satisfied branch manager burst into laughter in front of everyone, but when he checked the account, his laughter froze forever. The main branch of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia in Martin Place had never seen a morning like that one. The marble and glass building shone under the sun, its polished floors reflecting the light from the imported chandeliers. It was the kind of place where millionaires kept their fortunes and where humble people rarely dared to enter. Ely Montgomery pushed the heavy glass door with his calloused hands, the same hands that had worked the red earth for more than 5 decades. His battered Akubra hat was worn by the sun and the rains of countless seasons. His denim overalls showed stains of fresh dirt, evidence that he had come straight from his sheep station in the outback. His work boots left small dusty footprints on the immaculate floor. The contrast was brutal. While the other customers wore tailored suits and carried leather briefcases, Eli looked like a stranger in a world that did not belong to him. Yet he walked with a quiet dignity, his back straight despite his age, with a serenity that only decades of honest labor bestow. The murmur in the branch gradually stopped. Heads turned. Looks of barely disguised contempt followed the old man's every step. An elegant lady wrinkled her nose and subtly moved away, as if poverty were contagious. A young executive let out a mocking chuckle while whispering something to his companion. Ely paid them no mind. He had learned long ago that a man's worth is not measured by the clothes he wears, but by the weight of his character. He approached the waiting area and took a number. The ticket indicated there were 14 people ahead of him. He sat down on one of the waiting chairs, his hat resting on his knees. Next to him, a businessman immediately stood up and moved seats, making a face of disgust. Eli simply closed his eyes and waited, just as he had waited so many times in his life. For the rain for his crops, for the sun for his next shearing, for the right moment for every planting. Nearly an hour passed. The queue moved slowly. Eli quietly observed how the tellers attended to the well-dressed clients with radiant smiles, offering them flat whites, sparkling water, all kinds of attention. But when a client of modest appearance approached, those same smiles became mechanical, cold, rushed. Finally, his number appeared on the screen. Ely calmly stood up and walked to counter number 3. Behind the glass was Chloe Davies, a young employee who hadn't been working at the bank for long. Her eyes held the spark of someone not yet completely hardened by the system. "Good morning, sir." Chloe greeted him with a genuine smile, one of the few Eli had received since entering. "How may I help you?" "Good morning, miss," Ellie replied in a quiet voice, pulling an old bank card from his pocket. "I want to make a withdrawal." "Certainly, sir. What amount would you like to withdraw?" Eli looked her directly in the eyes. $1 million. The words hung in the air like an about-to-explode bomb. Chloe blinked, sure she had misheard. "Excuse me, sir. Could you repeat that amount?" $1 million. Ailey repeated with the same calm, as if asking for change for the bus. Chloe didn't know how to respond. She looked at the old man in front of her, his work clothes, his cracked hands, and felt a pang of discomfort. Clearly, this poor man was confused. Perhaps he had mental health issues. Perhaps it was a cruel joke. "Sir," she began delicately, "are you sure about the amount? $1 million is a lot of money." "I know perfectly well how much it is, miss. It is my money and I want to withdraw it." Eli's tone was neither aggressive nor confrontational. It was simply firm, with the quiet authority of someone telling the truth and having nothing to prove. Chloe didn't know how to proceed. These types of situations weren't in the training manual. She looked towards her supervisor's office, seeking guidance. It was then that Marcus Thorne appeared. The branch general manager was a man who had built his career on flattering the rich and scorning the poor. He wore a suit that cost more than many families earned in a year. His gold tie glittered under the bank lights. A luxury watch adorned his wrist, a symbol of a status he considered deserved. Marcus had overheard the conversation from his office and decided to intervene personally. This was exactly the kind of situation he enjoyed, putting people who didn't understand how the world of money worked in their place. "Is there a problem here, Chloe?" he asked in a pompous voice, approaching the counter with calculated steps to project authority. "Mr. Thorne, this gentleman says he wants to withdraw $1 million, Chloe explained in a low voice, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus looked Ellie up and down, his eyes lingering on every detail of his humble appearance. The worn hat, the stained overalls, the dusty boots. A condescending smile formed on his lips. "Sir," he left the word hanging, waiting for a name. "Montgomery. Elias Montgomery." "Mr. Montgomery," Marcus pronounced the name as if it left a bad taste in his mouth. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This is a serious bank, not a place for jokes. If you want to make a real withdrawal, we'll gladly assist you, but it needs to be an amount that, well, that you actually have in your account. Eli looked at him, unfazed. I am not joking. I want to withdraw $1 million from my account. Marcus burst into a loud laugh. It wasn't a discreet or restrained laugh. It was a booming, exaggerated guffaw designed to humiliate. He leaned back, his body shaking with each explosion of mockery. Did you hear that? He exclaimed loudly enough for everyone in the branch to hear. The farmer wants to withdraw $1 million. Other laughs joined his. Some clients covered their mouths trying to hide it. Others laughed openly. Employees exchanged uncomfortable glances, some smiling nervously to please their boss. Eli remained motionless, his expression unchanged. He had faced storms that destroyed entire harvests. He had survived droughts that killed hundreds of animals. He had buried loved ones with his own hands. The laughter of empty people meant nothing to him. Look, Mr. Montgomery. Marcus wiped an imaginary tear from his eye, still shaking with laughter. I'm going to be generous and check your account to kindly show you that you are mistaken. Then you can go home without further embarrassment. I appreciate that, Eli replied with perfect calm. Check the account. Marcus gestured to Chloe to hand him the card. The young woman obeyed, passing the worn plastic that looked as old as its owner. The manager took it between his fingers as if it were something dirty. Let's see what we have here, he muttered in a theatrical tone as he walked towards the main computer. Several curious employees and clients had gathered, wanting to witness the moment the poor old man would be put in his place. Marcus inserted the card and typed the necessary commands to access the account information. His mocking smile remained firmly planted on his face as he waited for the screen to load. And then, everything changed. Marcus's smile froze. His eyes widened like saucers. The color drained from his face so quickly, it seemed someone had pulled an invisible plug. His hands began to tremble over the keyboard. This must be a mistake, he whispered to himself, his voice suddenly hoarse. He typed again, verifying, reloading the page, desperately searching for a system glitch to explain what he was seeing. But the numbers remained there, immutable, real. Elias Montgomery's account didn't have $1 million, it had $47 million. The silence that fell over the branch was absolute. Marcus stood frozen in front of the screen, his mind unable to process the information. All that laughter, all that mockery, all that public humiliation had been directed at a man who could buy the entire bank if he wished. Chloe, who had remained silent throughout the humiliation, discreetly leaned over to look at the screen. When she saw the numbers, she had to hold on to the counter to keep from losing her balance. Mr. Montgomery. Marcus's voice came out as a strangled croak. I didn't know. Is this enough for my withdrawal? Eli asked with the same usual calm, as if nothing had happened. The manager swallowed audibly. In all his years of career, he had never made such a catastrophic mistake. He had publicly humiliated one of the most important clients the bank could possibly have. His job, his reputation, everything was in jeopardy. Of course, Mr. Montgomery, Marcus stammered, his arrogance completely evaporated. Please allow me to serve you personally in my private office. We will offer you coffee, whatever you desire. It is an honor to have you as a client. Eli looked at him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes that Marcus couldn't decipher. It wasn't rage or resentment. It was something deeper, more disturbing. 5 minutes ago, I was a laughingstock. 5 minutes ago, you laughed at my dirty hands, at my work clothes, at my appearance. Eli finally spoke, his voice serene but with a weight that made everyone present flinch. Nothing has changed in me since then. I am still the same man who walked through that door. The only difference is that now you know how many zeros are in my account. The manager found no words to reply. My father taught me something many years ago, Eli continued. He told me that money doesn't make people, it reveals them. Today, Mr. Manager, your money revealed you, and my money revealed me to you. He turned towards Chloe, who had tears forming in her eyes. Miss, you were the only person in this place who treated me like a human being since I arrived. The only one who sincerely said good morning to me. I want you to be the one to process my withdrawal. Chloe nodded, discreetly wiping her eyes. But before she could answer, the bank doors burst open. A young man rushed in, his face contorted with an urgency that immediately captured everyone's attention. Grandpa, he shouted, frantically searching through the crowd until he found Eli. Grandpa, thank God I found you. It's Grandma. The hospital called. You have to come now. Ellie's face, which had remained serene throughout the humiliation, paled instantly. For the first time, His unshakable calm cracked. "Eleanor," he whispered, his voice suddenly fragile. "What happened to Eleanor?" "I don't know the details," the young man replied with a trembling voice. "They just said it's serious, very serious." Without another word, Ellie began walking towards the exit. He paused briefly next to Marcus, who remained frozen, like a statue. "The withdrawal can wait," the old man said. "But this conversation is not over." And with those words, Elias Montgomery left the bank as quietly as he had entered, leaving behind a million unanswered questions. Where did that fortune come from? Why did a multi-millionaire live like a simple station hand? What secrets did that old man with calloused hands and a tycoon's bank account keep? And most importantly, what had happened to Eleanor? The answers would change the lives of everyone present in that branch forever. The Royal Melbourne Hospital was an old building that had seen generations of the community born and die. Its walls held secrets of broken and reunited families, of medical miracles and painful farewells. It was the kind of place where hope and despair coexisted in every corridor. Eli rushed in as fast as his legs would carry him. His grandson, Sam, held his arm as they crossed the emergency doors. The old man who minutes earlier had faced humiliation with iron dignity now trembled like a leaf in the wind. "Where is my wife?" he asked the first nurse he found, his voice breaking. "Eleanor Montgomery, she was brought in a short while ago. Please, I need to see her." The nurse checked her records with a calmness that felt unbearably slow to Eli. "Room 212, second floor." "But, sir, only direct relatives can enter." And Eli didn't hear the rest. He was already walking towards the stairs, ignoring the lift, as if every second of waiting were a second stolen from his life with Eleanor. Sam followed closely behind. "Grandpa, calm down. The doctors are with her. Everything will be fine." But Eli knew that tone. It was the same tone he had used so many times to console others when there was no possible comfort. It was the tone of someone speaking to fill the silence, because the truth hurts too much. When they reached the second floor, a doctor with a grave expression waited for them in the corridor. Dr. Andrew Benson was a man who had dedicated his life to saving others, and had learned long ago that sometimes the most difficult words were the most necessary. "Mr. Montgomery," he asked upon seeing Eli approach. "That's me. How is my wife? What happened to her?" Dr. Benson took a deep breath. "Mr. Montgomery, your wife suffered a severe heart attack. She was found unconscious at home a few hours ago. Neighbors called emergency services when she didn't respond." Eli's world stopped. His knees threatened to give way, but Sam held him firmly. "Will she be all right?" The question came out as a desperate whisper. "Please, tell me she'll be all right." Dr. Benson lowered his gaze for an instant, before continuing. "We managed to stabilize her, but her condition is delicate. The next few hours will be critical. We need to perform emergency surgery to repair the cardiac damage. Without the operation, the chances of survival are very low." "Then do it," Eli responded immediately. "Do whatever you have to do. I don't care about the cost. Just save her." The doctor hesitated. "Mr. Montgomery, is there anything else you need to know?" "The procedure your wife needs is extremely specialized. We don't have the necessary equipment or specialist here in Melbourne. We would have to transfer her to the Royal Metropolitan Medical Centre in Sydney, and time is a crucial factor." "How much time do we have?" "Ideally, the surgery should be performed within the next 24 hours. After that, every hour that passes significantly reduces the chances of success." Sam intervened. "Doctor, what is the cost of the procedure and the transfer?" Dr. Benson exchanged an uncomfortable glance with the nurse beside him. "The transfer by air ambulance, the surgery, the specialists, the recovery, we are talking about several $100,000, and the Royal Metropolitan Medical Centre requires a considerable deposit before scheduling any procedure of this magnitude." Sam turned pale. He knew his grandparents' apparent financial situation. They lived on a modest farm, with no luxuries, no ostentation. Where would they get that kind of money? But Eli didn't hesitate for a second. "Money is not a problem," he said with a firmness that surprised everyone. "Make the necessary calls. I want the best specialist available, the best team, the best of everything. My wife deserves it." The doctor looked at him with a mixture of compassion and skepticism. He had seen too many families make promises they couldn't keep in moments of desperation. "Mr. Montgomery, I understand your emotional situation, but I need to be honest with you. We are talking about a very considerable sum of money. The hospital will need guarantees before." Eli interrupted him, his voice regaining some of that unwavering calm he had shown at the bank. "I give you my word that the money will be available before the end of the day. Now, please, can I see my wife? Something in the old man's eyes convinced the doctor that he was not facing a man who made empty promises. He nodded slowly. The room is at the end of the corridor. She is sedated but conscious at intervals. You can stay with her while we make the arrangements. Eli thanked him with a nod and walked towards the room with steps that seemed to weigh tons. When he opened the door to room 212, Eli's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Eleanor lay in the hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped with a constant rhythm, monitoring every beat of a heart that had loved Eli for a lifetime. Her hair, once as black as the night, was now completely white, spread over the pillow like a silver crown. Her eyes were closed, but even in that fragile state, Eli could see the beautiful young woman he had fallen in love with decades ago. He approached slowly, took her hand between his, and the tears he had held back for hours finally found release. "My love," he whispered, bringing Eleanor's hand to his lips. "I am here. I am not going anywhere." As if she could hear him through the layers of sedation, Eleanor slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze, though clouded by medication, immediately found her husband, Eli. Eli. Her voice was barely a whisper, weak as the flutter of a butterfly's wing. "Sheh, don't talk. Save your strength. I thought you wouldn't make it." A tear rolled down Eleanor's cheek. "I thought I was leaving without seeing you." "Never." Eli squeezed her hand gently. "You will never leave without me, and you are not leaving yet. You are going to be all right. I promise you." Eleanor tried to smile, but the effort was too much. "You always keep your promises, and this will be no exception. They are going to operate on you, my love. The best doctors. We will get you through this." "The money," Eleanor whispered with evident concern. I don't want you to spend the children's money." Eli felt a sharp pain in his chest. After so many years, Eleanor still thought of others before herself. That infinite generosity was one of the thousands of reasons he loved her. "Don't worry about that now. Just worry about resting, about getting strong." Eleanor's eyes began to close again, the sedation reclaiming her. But before sleep took her, she whispered something that made Eli's heart skip a beat with renewed strength. "I never regretted choosing you. Even when everyone said you were just a poor station hand. I knew. I always knew." She didn't finish the sentence. Sleep claimed her, leaving Eli holding her hand in the silence of the room with the weight of decades of love and secrets pressing on his chest. Sam entered silently and sat beside his grandfather. "Grandpa," he spoke softly, "how are we going to pay for all this? I don't want to be insensitive, but the doctors will need answers soon." Eli didn't take his eyes off Eleanor. "Do you remember what I told you when you were a boy? When you asked me why we lived on the farm if we could buy any house we wanted?" Sam frowned, confused. "Grandpa, you never told me that. I always thought we barely had enough to live on." "Exactly." Eli finally looked at him. "You thought what everyone thought. What I wanted everyone to think." "I don't understand. Your grandmother and I made a decision many years ago, a decision very few people know about," Eli continued. "We decided that money would never define who we were or how we lived. We decided to raise our family with values, not with luxuries. To teach them the value of work, of humility, of effort." Sam looked at him with ever-widening eyes. "Grandpa, what are you talking about?" "Today I went to the bank to withdraw money for your grandmother's operation. I knew her heart had been failing for a while. The doctors had warned us, but she refused to spend money on herself. She said that money was for you, for future generations." "How much money, Grandpa?" Eli took a deep breath. $47 million. The silence that followed was so deep that Sam could hear his own heart beating. That's impossible," he finally stammered. "We're station hands. We live in a wooden house. We never had a new car. I worked from age 14 to help with expenses. How is this possible?" "It's a long story, son. A story your grandmother and I kept for our whole lives. A story we promised to tell only when absolutely necessary." Before Sam could reply, the room door opened. It was a nurse with an urgent expression. "Mr. Montgomery, someone is asking for you at reception. They say they are from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. They insist on speaking with you personally." Eli and Sam exchanged surprised glances. "From the bank?" Sam asked. "How did they know you were here?" Eli slowly stood up, giving Eleanor a kiss on the forehead before heading towards the door. "Stay with her," he told Sam. "Don't leave her alone for a second." When Eli arrived at the hospital reception, he found a scene he hadn't expected. Marcus Thorne was there, but he was no longer the arrogant man from hours before. His posture was stooped, his expression haggard. Next to him was a middle-aged woman with a professional but worried expression. Behind them, Two men in dark suits waited silently. Mr. Montgomery. Marcus stepped forward with hesitant steps. I deeply regret bothering you at a time like this. I found out from the emergency records that your wife was here. I needed to speak with you. What do you want? Eli's voice was cold, but not hostile. First, to offer you my sincerest apologies for my behavior this morning. It was unforgivable, inexcusable. I judged based on appearances. Marcus lowered his gaze. Not only for that, sir. After you left, the bank's regional director was notified about what had happened. He pointed to the woman beside him. This is Miss Gabriela Fuentes. She is here to speak with you about a matter related to your account. The woman stepped forward, her expression professional but with a touch of genuine concern. Mr. Montgomery, I regret meeting you under these circumstances. The bank has been notified of your wife's medical emergency. We want you to know that all the necessary resources for her treatment are at your disposal immediately, without paperwork, without delay. It is the least we can do after the shameful treatment you received this morning. Eli studied her for a moment. I appreciate that. But I don't need favors. I can pay for my wife's treatment. We know that, sir. But there is something else. Gabriela exchanged a nervous glance with the men in dark suits. There is a matter related to your account that requires urgent attention. A matter that cannot wait. My wife is fighting for her life. Any banking matter can wait. I'm afraid not, Mr. Montgomery. One of the men in the dark suit spoke for the first time. My name is Rodrigo Castellanos. I am an investigator with the Australian Federal Police Financial Crimes Unit. We have been monitoring your account for some time, and this morning, when the alerts for the withdrawal you requested were activated, we discovered something you need to know. Eli felt a chill run down his spine. What did you discover? Investigator Castellanos looked around, ensuring no one else could hear. Mr. Montgomery, someone has been trying to access your account illegally for the past few months. Multiple attempts at unauthorized transfers. Someone knows about your money. Someone very close to you. Eli's heart stopped. And the most worrying part, Castellanos continued, is that the access attempts originated from an address linked to a direct relative of yours. The walls of the hospital seemed to close in around Eli. A relative. Someone of his own blood trying to steal the money he and Eleanor had protected their entire lives. Who? The word came out as a strangled whisper. That's what we need to investigate. But, Mr. Montgomery, until we know exactly who is behind this, you cannot trust anyone. At that moment, Sam appeared running down the corridor, his face pale as wax. Grandpa! It's Grandma! The monitors started beeping. The doctors say she's getting worse. Eli ran towards the stairs, his mind torn between the terror of losing his wife and the betrayal of discovering that someone in his own family wanted to rob him. Who was the traitor, and what other secrets were about to be revealed? The answers were closer than Eli imagined, and would be more painful than he could ever have borne. The heart monitors emitted a sharp, intermittent sound that pierced Eli's soul like 1,000 needles. He ran down the hospital corridor with a speed his years should not allow, pushing doors, dodging nurses with his heart pounding in his throat. When he reached room 212, Dr. Benson and two nurses surrounded Eleanor's bed. Their movements were fast, precise, urgent. The old man stopped at the threshold, paralyzed by the horror of what he saw. "Eleanor!" he cried, trying to approach, but a nurse gently stopped him. "Sir, you need to wait outside. The doctors are working. She's my wife." "I'm not going anywhere." Dr. Benson looked up for an instant. "Let him stay." "But, Mr. Montgomery, I need you to stay in that corner and not interfere." Eli obeyed, pressing against the wall, his trembling hands covering his mouth, as he watched helplessly as the doctors fought to stabilize the woman he had loved for over 5 decades. The minutes stretched like hours. Every beep of the monitor was a prayer. Every silence between beeps was an eternity of anguish. Sam appeared at the door, his face mirroring the terror consuming his grandfather. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, the monitor's rhythm began to stabilize. The sharp sound transformed into a steady pulse, still weak, but present, alive. Dr. Benson stepped away from the bed, removing his gloves with a sigh of relief mixed with concern. "We managed to stabilize her again," he said, approaching Eli. "But Mr. Montgomery, I must be completely honest with you. Your wife will not survive another crisis like this. Surgery is no longer an option. It is an absolute and immediate necessity." "Then do it here now!" "We can't. I already explained it. We don't have the specialized equipment or the necessary cardiovascular surgeon. The only place they can perform this procedure is the Royal Metropolitan Medical Centre in Sydney." Eli looked at Eleanor, who had lost consciousness again. Her breath was so weak it barely moved the sheets over her chest. "How much time do we have? If we transfer her in the next few hours, the chances of success are reasonable. If we wait longer, every minute that passes will significantly reduce those chances." At that moment, Gabriela Fuentes appeared at the room door. The bank's regional director had remained at the hospital waiting for the right moment to intervene. "Mr. Montgomery," she spoke with a professional voice, but laden with genuine concern. "I took the liberty of making a few calls. There is a medical helicopter available that can transfer your wife to the Royal Metropolitan Medical Center in less than an hour. The best cardiovascular surgeon in the country, Dr. Sebastian Herrera, is available and has agreed to perform the operation tonight." Ellie looked at her with surprise. "How did you manage all that so quickly?" "The bank has agreements with emergency medical services for our preferred clients, and after what happened this morning, it's the least we can do." She paused before continuing. "The costs will be covered immediately from your account with your authorization." "Of course, you have my authorization. Do whatever is necessary." "Doctor," Benson intervened. "Ma'am, if this is true, we need to coordinate the transfer immediately. Every minute counts." "It's already on its way," Gabriela replied. "The helicopter will land on the hospital's helipad in approximately 20 minutes." While the medical professionals began preparations for the transfer, Eli approached Eleanor's bed, took her cold hand in his, and leaned down to whisper in her ear. "Hold on, my love. We are going to get through this together, as always." Sam approached his grandfather, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Grandpa, I need to understand what is going on. All this, the money, the investigators, someone in the family trying to steal. I am completely lost." Eli closed his eyes for a moment. The weight of secrets kept for decades pressed upon him, demanding release. "Your grandmother and I promised to take this story to the grave, but it seems fate has other plans. Look me in the eyes. You deserve to know the truth. Your whole family deserves to know it. But now is not the time. First, we have to make sure your grandmother survives. Afterwards, when she is out of danger, I will tell you everything. At least you can tell me where all that money came from. I grew up thinking we barely had enough to eat." Eli smiled sadly. "And that was exactly the idea, son. We wanted you, your siblings, all our grandchildren, to grow up valuing work, effort, humility. Too many families have been destroyed by inherited fortunes that their members never learned to value. But $47 million, Grandpa, that doesn't appear out of nowhere. It didn't appear out of nowhere. Every cent of that money was earned with sweat, with sacrifice, with decisions that changed the course of our lives." Eli's eyes drifted into distant memories. "Many years ago, when your grandmother and I were young and had nothing, I took a risk that everyone thought would destroy me. I invested everything we had, every last cent, in something no one else believed was possible." "In what?" Before Eli could answer, investigator Rodrigo Castellanos entered the room with a grave expression. "Mr. Montgomery, I regret interrupting, but we have new information about the attempts to access your account, information that cannot wait." Eli felt a knot forming in his stomach. "What did you discover?" Castellanos looked at Sam for a moment, as if assessing whether he should speak in front of him. He finally decided the situation was too urgent for subtlety. The unauthorized transfer attempts originated from 3 different addresses. One of them is linked to a computer registered in the name of Renata Montgomery. The name hit Eli like a punch to the chest. "Renata!" Sam exclaimed in disbelief. "My sister, that's impossible. Renata hasn't even lived in the country for years. She's been in Europe for years." "Transfers can be made from anywhere in the world," Castellanos explained. "And according to our records, Miss Renata Montgomery returned to the country several weeks ago. We don't know exactly where she is, but she is definitely here." Eli sank into a chair, the weight of this revelation crushing him. Renata, his eldest granddaughter, the first to leave the farm, the first to reject the simple life he and Eleanor had built. She had always been different, always wanted more, always felt she deserved more. "There must be a mistake," Sam mumbled, his voice trembling. "Renata can be many things, but she is not a thief. She wouldn't steal from her own grandparents." "The data doesn't lie, sir," Castellanos replied firmly, "but without cruelty. But there is more. The other 2 access addresses are still being investigated. One seems to come from a financial consulting firm. The other is very sophisticatedly encrypted. Whoever is behind this has advanced IT security knowledge." "Are you saying there is more than one person involved?" I am saying this looks like something bigger than a simple family theft attempt. Someone knew exactly how much money you had and how to try to access it. Someone with privileged information. The sound of approaching propellers interrupted the conversation. The medical helicopter had arrived. The next few minutes were a whirlwind of controlled activity. Eleanor was prepared for the transfer with military precision. Eli insisted on accompanying her on the helicopter, and no one had the heart to refuse him. Before boarding, he stopped in front of Sam. "I need you to do something for me, something important, whatever it is, Grandpa. Go to the farm. In my room, under the loose floorboard next to the window, there is a metal box. Bring it to the hospital in Sydney. Don't open it. Don't let anyone see it." "Did you understand?" Sam nodded, although confusion was evident on his face. "What's in that box?" "The truth. The whole truth about our family, about the money, about everything." Eli squeezed his grandson's shoulder. "And Sam, be careful. If what the investigator says is true, we don't know who we can trust." The old man boarded the helicopter next to Eleanor. Through the window, he watched his grandson become smaller and smaller as the aircraft ascended into the night sky. Eleanor was connected to multiple monitors, her life depending on machines and the skill of the paramedics accompanying her. Eli held her hand, whispering words of love that he hoped she could hear somewhere deep in her consciousness. "Do you remember when we met?" He spoke softly, more to himself than to her. "I was a boy with nothing. I worked in your father's fields for a wage that was barely enough to eat. And you were the boss's daughter, the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. Everyone said I was mad to even look at you. Your father threatened to destroy me if I dared come near you." A tear rolled down his wrinkled cheek. "But you, Eleanor, you saw something in me that no one else could see. You chose me when you could have chosen anyone." The helicopter cut through the night, the city lights appearing on the horizon like fallen stars, and together they built everything. Every decision, every sacrifice, every triumph, and every failure they faced together. "You can't leave now, my love. No, not when we still have so many stories left to live." One of the paramedics approached with a professional but compassionate expression. "Sir, we are about to land. The surgical team is ready and waiting." Eli nodded without letting go of Eleanor's hand. When the helicopter landed on the helipad of the Royal Metropolitan Medical Center, a team of specialists waited with a stretcher. Everything happened very quickly. Eleanor was transferred to the intensive care unit, while Eli was led to a private waiting room. Dr. Sebastian Herrera, the cardiovascular surgeon, introduced himself before entering the operating theater. He was a middle-aged man with eyes that conveyed confidence and competence. "Mr. Montgomery, I will be direct with you. Your wife's condition is serious. The surgery we are about to perform is complex and carries significant risks. But I have reviewed her studies, and I believe we can save her. What are the chances?" Dr. Herrera looked at him with honesty. "If everything goes well, she has good chances of a full recovery. But, Mr. Montgomery, at her age, any heart surgery is a challenge. I need you to be prepared for any outcome." Eli took a deep breath. "Doctor, that woman has been my life for over 50 years. Do everything in your power, please. I give you my word." The surgeon disappeared through the operating theater doors, leaving Eli alone in the waiting room. The silence was deafening. The white walls seemed to close in on him. For the first time in decades, Elias Montgomery felt completely alone. He knelt by one of the chairs, closed his eyes, and began to pray. He was not a particularly religious man, but in that moment, he would have done anything, made any pact, any sacrifice, to save his Eleanor. The hours passed like centuries. Nurses occasionally entered to offer him water or coffee, but Eli refused everything. He couldn't eat or drink while the love of his life fought for survival somewhere behind those doors. It was during those endless hours of waiting that memories began to flood him. Memories of an entire shared life. The day they married, with Eleanor wearing a simple dress she had sewn herself. The birth of their first son, when Eli cried more than the baby. The hard years when they didn't know if there would be enough food for the next day. And then the moment that changed everything. The moment no one knew about except him and Eleanor. The moment that made them millionaires. As Eli lost himself in his memories, his phone began to ring. It was an unknown number. Normally he wouldn't have answered, but something compelled him to pick it up. Grandpa. The voice on the other end was female, familiar, laden with an emotion Eli couldn't immediately identify. His blood ran cold. "Renata, Grandpa, I need to talk to you. Please, don't hang up. I know what you think I did, but you have to listen to me. Things are not what they seem." Eli gripped the phone tightly. "Where are you?" Why did you try to access my account? It wasn't me, Grandpa. Well, technically it was me, but not in the way you think. Someone forced me. Someone who has information about our family. Information that could destroy us all. What are you talking about? I can't explain it over the phone. I need to see you in person. But Grandpa, you have to believe me. There is someone else behind all this. Someone who knows about the money, about how you got it, about everything, and is willing to use that information to destroy you. The line cut off abruptly. Eli stared at the phone, his mind processing his granddaughter's words. Was it true? Or was it just another lie from someone desperate to cover up their crimes? And most disturbingly of all, who else knew the secret he and Eleanor had kept their entire lives? A secret that, if brought to light, could change their family's history forever. The operating theater doors opened. Dr. Herrera walked out slowly, his expression impossible to read. Eli stood up, his heart stopping in anticipation. The surgeon approached, removed his surgical cap, and spoke the words that would determine the rest of Elias Montgomery's life. Mr. Montgomery, your wife. Mr. Montgomery, your wife. Doctor. Herrera paused, which seemed to last an eternity. Eli felt the entire world stop, the air leave his lungs, his heart forget how to beat. She survived the surgery. Eli's legs gave way. He slumped onto the nearest chair, covering his face with his hands as silent sobs shook his body. Decades of strength, of being the unwavering pillar of his family, collapsed in an instant of absolute relief. The operation was extremely complex, Dr. Herrera continued, sitting next to the old man. We found more damage than we expected, but your wife is an extraordinarily strong woman. She fought on that operating table like few people I have seen in my career. She is going to be all right. Eli managed to articulate through tears. The next few hours will be crucial. We will transfer her to the intensive care unit, where she will be constantly monitored. If she gets through the night without complications, her chances of recovery will increase significantly. Can I see her? She is still under anesthesia, but you can stay with her. Sometimes the presence of loved ones does more than any medicine. Eli was led to the intensive care unit. Eleanor lay in a bed surrounded by machines, monitoring every beat of her newly repaired heart. Tubes and wires connected her to monitors that emitted constant, rhythmic, living sounds. He sat beside her and took her hand with infinite delicacy. You did it, my love, he whispered. I knew you would. You were always stronger than me. He spent hours there, without moving, without sleeping, simply holding the hand of the woman who had been his partner in every battle of life. Memories kept coming in waves, each one more vivid than the last. He remembered the day they decided to marry in secret, because Eleanor's father would never have approved of his daughter joining a mere farmhand. He remembered the old man's fury when he discovered the truth, how he kicked them off his property with nothing but the clothes on their backs. He remembered the cold nights in that small rented room when Eleanor cried silently, thinking he didn't hear her. And he remembered the moment that changed everything, the discovery that transformed their destiny. A noise at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Sam, with wrinkled clothes and a face marked by exhaustion and worry. In his hands, he carried a rusty metal box. Grandpa, he whispered, approaching. I found the box, just as you said, under the loose floorboard. Eli looked at his grandson and then at the box that had remained hidden for so many years. He felt the weight of the decisions he was about to make. How is Grandma? She survived the surgery. Now we just have to wait. Sam let out a sigh of relief. Thank God. He sat next to his grandfather, placing the box on an auxiliary table. Grandpa, on the way back, I got a call. It was Renata. She says she needs to see us urgently, that she has important information about what's happening, that someone else is involved, someone neither of us suspects. Did you tell her where we are? Sam lowered his gaze guiltily. Yes, I'm sorry, Grandpa. She's my sister. Despite everything, I can't believe she really wants to hurt us. Eli remained silent for a long moment. The situation was getting more complicated. Renata, his eldest granddaughter, the first to reject the simple life of the farm, had always been ambitious. She had always wanted more than the rural life could offer her. But a traitor capable of stealing from her own grandparents, when did that happen? She said she's coming from across town in a couple of hours. Eli nodded slowly. Then, we have time. Enough time for you to know the truth before she arrives. He picked up the metal box with slightly trembling hands. It wasn't the physical weight that was hard to carry, but the weight of the secrets it contained. What I am about to tell you will change everything you think you know about our family, Eli began, his voice deep and solemn. Your grandmother and I swore to take this to the grave, but today's events have shown me that some secrets cannot remain buried forever. He slowly opened the box. Inside were yellow documents, old photographs, newspaper clippings, and a worn-covered notebook. Many decades ago, when your grandmother and I were young and had nothing, I worked on her father's land. Mr. Aurelius Gallagher was the owner of hundreds of hectares, one of the most powerful landowners in the region. I was just another farmhand, invisible, insignificant. He pulled out an old photograph and showed it to Sam. In it appeared a young Eli, thin and with eyes full of dreams, next to a beautiful young woman who could only be Eleanor. We fell in love in secret. Every meeting was a risk. If your father had discovered us, he would have destroyed me. But young love is reckless, and we were no exception. How did he discover you were together? Eleanor got pregnant. Eli replied with a sad smile. Your father, my eldest son, was conceived in the midst of that forbidden love. When we could no longer hide the truth, we married in secret. Eleanor's father went mad with fury when he found out. He kicked us off his property. He swore we would never receive a cent of his fortune. He preferred to see her dead than married to a nobody like me. Sam listened in silence, absorbing every word. We went through hard years. I worked whatever I could, from sunup to sundown. Eleanor washed other people's clothes to help with expenses. We barely had enough to survive, but we were happy, son. That's the most important truth. We were poor, but we had something money can't buy. What changed? Eli took a newspaper clipping from the box. The headline, though faded by time, was still legible. Historic discovery on rural land. One day, while I was clearing an abandoned plot of land I had bought with our scarce savings, I found something. At first, I thought it was buried junk, old rusted tools, but when I kept digging, I discovered it was much more. The relics of an ancient indigenous settlement. Sam's eyes widened. What did you find? Priceless ancient artifacts, archaeological pieces. It turned out our small plot of land was over the remains of a centuries-old indigenous settlement. Experts came from everywhere to study the site. The government wanted to buy the land from us, but I refused. Why did you refuse? Because a very shrewd lawyer advised me not to sell. He explained that I had rights over the discoveries made on my property. We negotiated for months. Finally, we reached an agreement. The government would get access to the site for research and preservation, and I would receive fair compensation for the discovery and the use of my lands. He pulled out another document from the box. This compensation, wisely invested over decades, grew into what we have today. $47 million, all legal, all documented, all honestly earned. Sam took the documents with trembling hands. Why did you never tell us anything? Why live as if we were poor? Because money destroys families, son. I've seen it too many times. Heirs fighting over fortunes, siblings becoming enemies, children who never learn the value of work because they never had to strive. Your grandmother and I decided that our children and grandchildren would grow up with values, not bank accounts. But then, who else knows about this? Eli sighed deeply. That's the problem. We thought the secret was safe. Only us, our trusted lawyer, the government officials who handled the original agreement knew the truth. But evidently, someone else discovered the information. At that moment, the room door opened. Both men turned to see who was entering. It was Renata. The young woman was beautiful, with her grandmother's dark hair and her grandfather's piercing eyes. But there was something different about her. Something Eli hadn't seen before, a mix of fear and determination that transformed her familiar features into something almost unrecognizable. Grandpa, she said in a trembling voice, before you say anything, I need you to listen to me, please. Sam stood up, positioning himself protectively next to his grandfather. Renata, what is going on? Why do you appear after so long, just when all this is exploding? Because I didn't start this, Sam. I discovered something I shouldn't have discovered. And now I'm caught in the middle of something much bigger than all of us. Eli watched his granddaughter, seeing genuine fear in her eyes. But he also saw something else, something he couldn't quite identify. Speak, he ordered in a firm voice. Explain to us what is happening. Renata approached slowly, checking that no one else could hear from the corridor. Several months ago, while working in Europe for a financial consulting firm, I was assigned to investigate suspicious bank accounts with large sums of money that didn't match their owners' profiles. She paused, her eyes filling with tears. One of those accounts was yours, Grandpa. I didn't know it was you at first. I only saw numbers, patterns, anomalies. But when I dug deeper into the investigation, I discovered the account belonged to Elias Montgomery, my own grandfather. the man I thought barely had enough to live on. "And what did you do with that information?" Eli asked in a controlled voice. "I made the biggest mistake of my life, Renata. I told my boss. I thought it was just part of the job, that he would help me understand how my grandfather had accumulated that fortune. But instead, he saw an opportunity." "Who is your boss?" Renata took a deep breath before uttering the name that would change everything. "Augustus Gallagher, the grandson of Grandma Eleanor's father, your lifelong enemy. Grandpa, the heir of the family that swore to destroy you." The name hit Eli like lightning. Augustus Gallagher, the grandson of the man who had thrown them out onto the street, the blood of the landowner who had sworn Ellie would never have anything. For decades, Eli had believed that family had disappeared from his life, but now he understood that hatred can be inherited just like fortunes. He knew, Renata continued through tears, he knew about the archaeological discovery, about the agreement with the government, about everything. Your father-in-law died obsessed with the idea that you had stolen something that belonged to him. "But those lands were legally mine," Eli protested. "I bought them with money I earned working honestly." "That doesn't matter to Augustus. He believes everything you have should belong to his family. And when he discovered I was your granddaughter, he used me, manipulated me, threatened to destroy my career, to harm my family if I didn't help him access your account." Sam intervened furiously. "So, you helped him? You betrayed your own blood?" "I had no choice," Renata screamed desperately. "He has contacts everywhere, power, influence, resources. He told me that if I didn't cooperate, he would make sure Grandma had an accident, that no one would suspect anything." The words fell like stones into the still water of the room. "What did you say?" Eli stood up slowly, his face transforming. "What did you say about your grandmother?" Renata pallid when she realized what she had revealed. Grandma's heart attack. Augustus told me he would take care of making sure she didn't interfere. I thought he just meant he would distract her, keep her busy. I didn't think." She couldn't finish the sentence. The truth was too horrible to utter aloud. Eleanor's heart attack had not been an accident. Someone had deliberately caused it, and that someone was still free, plotting their next move. Eli felt a fury he hadn't experienced in his entire life. He was no longer the serene old man who had endured humiliation with dignity. He was a man ready to protect his family at any cost. "Where is Augustus Gallagher?" he asked in a voice that could have frozen hell. Renata instinctively recoiled from her grandfather's transformation. "Grandpa, you can't face him alone. He is dangerous. He has people working for him. High-level connections. Where is he?" Before Renata could answer, Eli's phone began to ring. A blocked number. The old man answered with firm hands. "Mr. Montgomery." The voice on the other end was educated, refined with a tone of inherited superiority. "I think it is time you and I had a conversation. My name is Augustus Gallagher, and I have a proposition you will not be able to refuse." The voice was soft as silk, but Eli could feel the poison hidden behind every word. It was the voice of someone accustomed to getting what they want, regardless of the human cost. "What do you want?" Eli replied with calculated coldness. A brief laugh echoed on the other end of the line, straight to the point. "I admire that in a man. My grandfather always said you were a crude peasant, but I see you also lack patience for formalities. Your grandfather was a cruel man who enjoyed humiliating those he considered inferior. I see the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. Watch your words, Mr. Montgomery." Augustus's tone hardened slightly. "You are in a very vulnerable position right now. Your dear wife has just come out of delicate surgery. It would be a shame if her recovery became complicated." Unexpectedly, Eli gripped the phone so tightly, his knuckles turned white. Sam and Renata watched him with expressions of alarm, unable to hear the conversation but aware that something terrible was happening. "If you harm my wife, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. It won't be necessary to go to those lengths. As I said, I have a proposition, one that will benefit both parties and prevent any unfortunate future accident. I'm listening. I want to meet with you, face to face. No intermediaries, no police, no tricks. Just two men settling a family matter that has been pending for decades. And why would I agree to meet with the man who tried to murder my wife? Because if you don't, I will finish what I started. And this time, I won't fail." The threat was direct, unvarnished. "Besides, I have information you need to know. Information about your precious fortune that will change everything you think you know." Eli was silent, processing the situation. He knew he was dealing with someone dangerous, someone unscrupulous. But he also knew he needed to face this threat head-on if he wanted to protect his family. "Where and when?" There is a restaurant called La Hacienda Colonial in the city center. Tomorrow at noon, come alone. If I see anyone else accompanying you, the meeting is cancelled, and the consequences will be permanent." The line cut off. Eli slowly put down the phone, his mind working at a dizzying speed. "What did he say?" Sam approached urgently. "Who was it?" "Augustus Gallagher wants to meet me tomorrow." Renata covered her mouth in horror. "Grandpa, you can't go!" "It's a trap. Augustus doesn't negotiate. He destroys. I have no choice. As long as that man is free, none of us will be safe, especially your grandmother." "Then, let's call the police," Sam insisted. "We have evidence of the attempts to access your account. Renata can testify about his threats. And while the police investigate for weeks or months, what stops Augustus from carrying out his threats?" Eli shook his head. "No, this is personal. This is between his family and mine, and it will end tomorrow." Before they could argue further, a nurse entered the room. "Mr. Montgomery, your wife is waking up. She is asking for you." Eli's heart leaped. Forgetting Augustus's threat momentarily, he headed towards Eleanor's bed. Her eyes, though tired and clouded by medication, searched for him with that same intensity he had seen the first time they met decades ago. "Eleanor," Ellie whispered. "I am here, my love. I am here." Eleanor tried to smile, but the effort seemed to exhaust her. "I dreamt of you. I dreamt we were dancing at our wedding. Do you remember how you stepped on my feet because you couldn't dance?" Eli laughed through tears. "And you pretended it didn't hurt." "Always protecting my pride." "Your pride needs no protection. You are the kindest man I have ever known." Eleanor's words were like balm to Eli's tortured soul, but they were also a reminder of everything at stake. This woman, who had sacrificed so much for him, who had loved him when he had nothing, was now in danger because of an ancestral hatred that should never have been inherited. "Eleanor, there is something I need to tell you, something that is happening." "I know," she interrupted him gently. "I heard voices. I heard the name Gallagher." Her eyes filled with an ancient sadness. "They finally found us, didn't they?" Eli looked at her, surprised. "Did you know this could happen?" "I always feared it. My family never forgave what they considered a betrayal. My father died cursing the day I was born because I chose to love you." A tear rolled down her pale cheek. "But I never regretted it. Not a single day. My love, you need to rest. You mustn't worry about this. Elias Montgomery." Eleanor gathered strength to speak firmly. "I have been your wife for over 5 decades. Don't treat me as if I were fragile." "What is going on?" The old man sighed. He couldn't lie to her. He had never been able to. "Augustus, your father's grandson, discovered our fortune. He has been trying to steal it, and he was the one who caused your heart attack." Eleanor's eyes opened in horror. "Augustus. Little Augustus. I carried him when he was a baby, before my father forbade me to see any member of the family. He's not a baby anymore, Eleanor. He is a dangerous man, obsessed with destroying us." Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, processing the information. When she opened them, something was different in her gaze, a determination Eli had rarely seen in his life. "There is something I never told you," she said slowly. "Something about my family that I kept for all these years because I thought it would never be relevant." "What are you talking about?" "My father wasn't just a cruel landowner. He was part of something bigger. A group of powerful families who controlled land, businesses, even government officials. They called themselves the Circle." Sam and Renata, who had remained silently near the door, exchanged confused glances. "The Circle," Eli frowned. "You never mentioned anything about that, because I wanted to forget that part of my life. I wanted to believe that by moving away from my family, I was also moving away from their darkness." Eleanor coughed weakly before continuing. "The Circle was responsible for many injustices. Families displaced from their lands, businesses ruined, lives destroyed, all to increase their power and wealth. And Augustus is part of this. If he inherited my father's obsession, he probably inherited his place in the Circle too. These families pass their secrets from generation to generation, just as others pass down inheritances." Eli felt the ground move beneath his feet. What he had thought was a simple family conflict was revealing itself as something much more complex and dangerous. "Eleanor, I need you to tell me everything you know about the Circle. Any name, any detail, anything that can help us." "There is a book," Eleanor whispered, her voice weakening. "A register my father kept that contained the names, transactions, secrets of all the families involved. When I left home, I stole it. I thought I might need it someday for protection." "Where is that book?" "I hid it in a place where no one would think to look." at the farm, buried under the tree where we secretly married. Eli remembered that tree, an old gum tree in the furthest corner of their property. They had exchanged vows under its branches when they had no money for a real wedding. It was their sacred place, their shared secret. Eleanor, why did you never tell me? Because I wanted to protect you. I wanted you to live without the burden of knowing what kind of monsters my family were. Her eyes filled with tears. But now, I understand that my silence only delayed the inevitable. The past always catches up with us, my love. Always. The nurse returned, her expression worried. Mr. Montgomery, your wife needs to rest. Her heart rate is rising. Eli nodded, leaning down to kiss Eleanor's forehead. Rest. I will fix this. Be careful, she whispered. Augustus is dangerous, but the circle is deadly. Trust no one who is not of your blood. The words resonated in Eli's mind as he left the room. Trust no one who is not of your blood. But even his own blood had been used against him. In the corridor, Sam and Renata waited for him. Grandpa, what is the circle? Sam asked. Is it some kind of criminal organization? It's worse than that. It's a legacy of power and corruption that has existed for generations. Eli looked at his grandchildren with seriousness. Listen to me carefully. What your grandmother just revealed changes everything. We are not just fighting Augustus. We are facing something much bigger. Then, we definitely need help, Renata insisted. We can't do this alone. Your grandmother said not to trust anyone outside the family. But you, Renata, you worked for Augustus. You were part of his plan. The words hit Renata like a slap. Grandpa, I never wanted to, I know, Eli interrupted her in a softer voice. I know you were manipulated, but I need to know I can trust you completely, that there are no more secrets between us. Renata looked him directly in the eyes. I swear to you on Grandma's life that I have told you everything I know. Augustus used me, but never again. I am on your side, Grandpa, on our side. Ellie studied her face for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Then, I need you to do something. Augustus trusts you, right? Or at least he thinks he still has control over you. He probably doesn't know I told you everything. Good. I want you to contact him. Tell him you are still on his side, that you managed to gain my trust. Find out everything you can about his plans, about the circle, about anything that might help us. Sam intervened, alarmed. Grandpa, that's dangerous. If Augustus finds out Renata is betraying him, it's a risk we must take, Eli responded. But while Renata does her part, I will do mine. What are you going to do? First, I'm going to the farm to get that book your grandmother hid. If it contains what she says, it could be our best weapon against Augustus and the circle. I'll come with you, Grandpa, Sam offered. No, I need you to stay here and protect your grandmother. Don't leave her alone for a second. If anything happens to her while I'm gone, he didn't finish the sentence. Eli started walking towards the hospital exit, but stopped when Renata called him. Grandpa, there is something else I didn't tell you. Something I discovered while working for Augustus. Eli turned slowly. What? Renata hesitated, as if the words she was about to speak cost her a physical effort. The circle has an infiltrator. Someone inside the bank where you keep your money. Someone who has been monitoring your account for years, reporting every move to the families in the circle. Who? I don't know for sure, but Augustus mentioned something once. He said they had eyes in the Commonwealth Bank of Australia for a long time. Eyes no one would suspect. Eli's mind worked quickly. The Commonwealth Bank of Australia. The same bank where Marcus Thorne had humiliated him. The same bank where Gabriela Fuentes, the regional director, had appeared so conveniently to help him. Was it possible that someone from the bank was involved with the circle? And if the help he had received wasn't genuine, but part of a more elaborate trap, Eleanor's words echoed in his mind. Trust no one. Did Augustus mention any specific name from the bank? He only said that his contact had worked there for years. Someone with access to privileged information from the most important clients. Eli thought of Marcus, with his arrogance and his contempt for humble clients. He thought of Gabriela, so efficient and so timely. He thought of Chloe, the only one who had treated him with humanity from the start. Who was the traitor? When you meet with Augustus, he said finally, try to find out who his contact in the bank is. That information could save us. Renata nodded. I will. Eli left the hospital and stepped out into the dark night. The cold air hit his face, but he barely felt it. His mind was too busy processing everything he had discovered in the last few hours. His wife had survived, but she was still in danger. An enemy from his past had resurfaced, thirsty for revenge. A secret organization lurked in the shadows. and someone he had trusted might be a traitor. As he walked towards the car park looking for a taxi to take him to the farm, his phone vibrated with a text message. It was from an unknown number. Mr. Montgomery, I know who the bank infiltrator is, and I know what the circle plans to do tomorrow. If you want to save your family, you need to trust me. Come alone to the municipal park at midnight. Look for the bench by the fountain. I didn't fail you this morning at the bank. I won't fail you now. See, Davies, Chloe Davies, the young employee who had treated him with dignity when everyone else scorned him. Was she an unexpected ally, or was she another trap set by the circle? Eli looked at the clock. There were only a few hours left until midnight. He had a decision to make, and that decision could mean the difference between saving his family or losing everything. The clock struck 11 p.m. when Eli made his decision. He would go to the meeting with Chloe. Something in his instinct told him that the young woman who had treated him with dignity at the bank could not be an enemy. But first, he needed the book that Eleanor had hidden for decades. He took a taxi towards the farm. The journey took just over an hour, enough time for his mind to review every detail of the day's events. It seemed impossible that just that morning, he was entering the bank as a simple station hand, and now he was facing a conspiracy spanning entire generations. The farm appeared in the darkness like a refuge of memories. Every corner of that property held stories of love, of sacrifice, of a life built with bare hands. Ailey paid the taxi driver and walked towards the old gum tree in the furthest corner of the land. The tree was still there, majestic and immutable, the silent witness to so many important moments. Under its branches, he and Eleanor had exchanged vows when they had nothing but their love. Under its branches, they had wept together over losses and celebrated triumphs. And under its roots, Eleanor had buried a secret that could now save them all. Eli took a shovel from the shed and began to dig. His arms protested with every movement, reminding him that he was no longer the strong young man who had worked these fields for decades, but the urgency gave him strength he thought he had lost. After several minutes of digging, the shovel hit something solid. With trembling hands, Eli brushed away the dirt until he uncovered a metal box wrapped in protective plastic. He carefully lifted it out with reverential care, as if he were unearthing a sacred treasure. Inside the box was a thick, old leather-bound notebook. The yellowed pages were filled with names, dates, amounts of money, descriptions of properties. It was a meticulous record of decades of corruption, of families destroyed, of lives ruined by the circle's greed. Eli leafed through the pages with growing horror. He recognized some names, people he had believed respectable his entire life. Businessmen, politicians, even judicial officials, all connected by invisible threads of power and complicity. And then he found a page that chilled his blood. It was a list titled Pending Operations, and on it, dated just weeks ago, was an entry that read, Montgomery Asset Recovery, Internal Contact, Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Executioner, AG, Augustus Gallagher. But what truly shattered Eli's heart was the name of the bank's internal contact. It was written in a different ink, added recently. M. Thorne, General Manager, Marcus Thorne. The man who had publicly humiliated him was not simply an arrogant manager, he was an active member of the circle. His humiliation had not been casual or spontaneous. It had been calculated, designed to provoke a reaction that would justify investigating Eli's account more deeply. Everything had been a trap from the beginning. With the notebook tucked into his jacket, Eli glanced at his watch. There were 20 minutes until midnight. He could still make the meeting with Chloe. The municipal park was deserted at that hour. The streetlights cast circles of yellowish light onto the empty paths. The sound of the central fountain was the only thing breaking the silence of the night. Eli found a bench by the fountain and sat down to wait. Every shadow seemed threatening, every noise put him on alert. But then a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Chloe Davies. The young woman approached with cautious steps, constantly looking over her shoulder as if afraid of being followed. When she reached Eli's side, her face showed a mixture of relief and terror. Mr. Montgomery, thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I needed to warn you. Warn me about what? Chloe sat down next to him, lowering her voice to an urgent whisper. I've been working at the bank for a short time, but I've seen things that shouldn't happen. Mr. Thorne takes strange calls. He has closed-door meetings with people who never appear in the official records. At first, I thought it was normal business matters. But after what happened with you this morning, I started investigating on my own. What did you find? Thorne wasn't acting alone when he humiliated you. He received specific instructions from someone. I overheard him on the phone after you left. He was saying the plan had worked, that you had revealed the magnitude of your fortune in front of witnesses who could now proceed with the next phase. Eli felt his suspicions confirmed. Do you know who was giving him instructions? I didn't hear the full name, but Thorne kept calling him Mr. Gallagher. The connection was undeniable. Marcus Thorne had been Augustus Gallagher's instrument from the start. Is there anything else? Chloe continued in a trembling voice. This afternoon, after Director Fuentes arranged your wife's transfer, I overheard another conversation. Thorne was furious. He was saying Fuentes had ruined everything by helping you, that she didn't know what she was getting into. Gabriela Fuentes is not part of the circle. I don't think so. She seemed genuinely concerned about you and your wife. Thorne called her naive and said he would have to take care of her too. Eli's heart raced. Not only he and his family were in danger, anyone who helped them became a target. Why are you telling me all this? He asked, looking directly at Chloe. What do you gain by risking this? Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Because my grandmother was like you, Mr. Montgomery, a humble woman who worked her whole life cleaning rich people's houses, and they treated her exactly like they treated you, with contempt, with mockery, as if she weren't a human being. Her voice broke with emotion. She died without anyone acknowledging her worth, without anyone apologizing for all the humiliations she endured. When I saw you this morning standing in front of Thorne with that unwavering dignity, I saw my grandmother, and I swore to myself that this time would be different. This time, someone was going to defend those the world despises. Eli felt a lump form in his throat. This young woman, almost a stranger, was risking everything for him, simply because she believed in justice. Chloe, what you are doing is very dangerous. I know, but there are things more important than personal safety. She took a small device out of her bag. This is a copy of the bank's phone records from the last few months. All the calls Thorne received and made to numbers not in the official database. I thought it might serve as evidence. Eli took the device with hands trembling with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by surviving. Thank me by exposing these people for what they really are. At that moment, Chloe's phone began to vibrate. She looked at the screen and turned pale. It's Thorne. He's looking for me. I have to go before he suspects anything. She stood up quickly, but before walking away, she turned to Eli. Mr. Montgomery, tomorrow at noon, when you meet with Augustus Gallagher, do not go alone. I know he told you to come unaccompanied, but it's a trap. Thorne mentioned something about having everything prepared for tomorrow. I don't know exactly what they plan, but it is not good. How do you know about the meeting? I overheard Thorne confirming the details with someone. He said the La Hacienda Colonial restaurant would be empty, except for their staff, that no one would hear anything. The words hit Eli with brutal force. It wasn't a meeting, it was an execution. Chloe disappeared into the darkness as quickly as she had arrived, leaving Eli alone with the weight of everything he had discovered. He spent the rest of the night at the farm, unable to sleep. He studied every page of Eleanor's notebook, memorizing names and connections. He reviewed the phone records Chloe had given him, identifying patterns that confirmed the magnitude of the conspiracy. The Circle was not simply a group of corrupt families. It was a network of power that extended across all sectors of society. Judges, businessmen, bankers, politicians, all connected, all protecting each other, all benefiting from the suffering of others. But there was something else in the notebook, something Eleanor hadn't mentioned. On the last pages, Eleanor's father had written a kind of confession. He spoke of remorse, of sleepless nights, of a weight on his soul that no wealth could alleviate. He described how the Circle had destroyed innocent families to seize their lands, how they had manipulated legal documents, how they had silenced those who tried to object. And at the end, there was a list of victims, people whose lives had been ruined by the Circle's actions. Next to each name was an address and a brief description of what had been taken from them. One of those addresses caught Eli's attention. It was a property he knew well, a property he had bought decades ago with his scarce savings. The original family of that land had been dispossessed by the Circle years before Eli bought it. He had legally acquired what others had stolen illegally. The irony was devastating. The fortune the Circle now wanted to snatch from him had been built on land they themselves had stolen from others. Dawn found Eli sitting on the porch of his farm, gazing at the fields he had worked his entire life. In a few hours, he would have to face Augustus Gallagher, an encounter that could end with his life or with the destruction of the Circle. His phone rang. It was Sam. "Grandpa, where are you? I've been worried all night. I'm at the farm. How is your grandmother?" "Stable. The doctors say she is responding well to treatment. Sam paused. Renata contacted Augustus. He believes she is still on his side. She managed to find out something important. What did she find out? Eli closed his eyes. Augustus plans to use tomorrow's meeting to force you to sign documents transferring your entire fortune to a shell company controlled by the Circle. If you refuse, he has fabricated evidence that would link you to illegal activities, evidence that would get you arrested and your money confiscated anyway. There's something else, Grandpa. Renata discovered that Augustus doesn't act alone. There is someone above him, someone who leads the Circle from the shadows, someone who has been planning this for years. Who is it? She doesn't know. Augustus only refers to him as the founder. He says he is someone your grandmother knew very well, someone she believed to be dead for a long time. The words dropped like stones in Eli's stomach. Someone Eleanor believed dead. There was only one person who fit that description, but it was impossible. Or was it? Sam, I need you to do something. Go to the hospital and stay with your grandmother. Don't leave her alone for a second. And when I arrive, I need to speak with her. There is something I need to ask her. What is it? Eli took a deep breath before uttering the words that would change everything. I need to ask her if her father really died 40 years ago, or if he has been alive all this time waiting for the perfect moment to destroy us. The silence on the other end of the line was the only answer, because some questions are too terrible to contemplate, and some truths are too dark to utter aloud. The Royal Melbourne Hospital was bathed in the golden light of dawn when Eli walked through its doors. He had spent the night awake, but a strange energy kept him standing. The energy of someone who knows they are about to face the most important battle of their life. Eleanor was awake when he entered the room. Her eyes, though tired, shone with that sharp intelligence that time had never managed to extinguish. Sam remained by her side, just as Eli had asked. My love, Eleanor extended her hand to him. Sam told me everything about the book, about Chloe, about what you discovered. Eli sat down next to her, holding her hand as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. Eleanor, I need to ask you something you might not want to answer. I already know what you are going to ask. She closed her eyes for a moment. And the answer is that, I don't know for sure. I saw my father's body at the funeral, but the Circle was capable of anything. Faking a death wouldn't have been difficult for them. If your father is alive, if he is the founder, then all this has been a 40-year revenge in preparation. Eleanor completed the sentence in a trembling voice. A revenge against me for abandoning him, for choosing love over family loyalty. Before they could continue, Renata rushed into the room. Grandpa, I just spoke to Augustus. He changed the meeting location. It's no longer at La Hacienda Colonial. It's here at the hospital. He says he wants Grandma to witness the conversation. He is on his way. Eli's heart raced. Augustus was bringing the battle directly to them. How much time do we have? Less than an hour. Eli stood up, his mind working at a dizzying speed. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he had memorized during the night. Investigator Castellanos, this is Elias Montgomery. I need your help. I have evidence of a decades-long corruption network. Names, dates, transactions, all documented. But I need you to act now. The conversation lasted several minutes. When he finished, Eli had a plan. Sam, Renata, listen to me carefully. What I am about to do is risky, but it's the only way to end this once and for all. He explained every detail to them. When he finished, both grandchildren looked at him with a mixture of terror and admiration. Grandpa, are you sure? Sam asked. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The minutes passed like seconds. Eli remained by Eleanor's side, whispering words of love and courage to her. She squeezed his hand with a strength that defied her weakened condition. Whatever happens, Eleanor, she spoke with a firm voice. I want you to know that every day by your side was a gift, that I would choose this life 1,000 times over if I could start again. Don't talk as if this is a farewell. Eli kissed her forehead. We still have many years together. The room door opened. Augustus Gallagher entered with the arrogance of someone who believes himself master of the world. He was a middle-aged man, elegantly dressed, with features that vaguely resembled Eleanor. Behind him came Marcus Thorne, his expression a mask of calculated coldness. Mr. Montgomery. Augustus smiled with a cordiality that didn't reach his eyes. We finally meet in person. And dear Aunt Eleanor, what a pleasure to see you, after so many years, although the circumstances could be better. Don't call me Aunt, Eleanor replied with icy contempt. You lost that right when you tried to murder me. So dramatic, as always. The heart attack was simply an incentive, a way to ensure your husband's cooperation. Eli stepped forward, positioning himself between Augustus and Eleanor's bed. You said you had a proposition. Speak. Augustus pulled a folder of documents from his briefcase. It's very simple. You sign these papers transferring all your assets to our company, and your family lives in peace. You refuse, and the consequences will be unfortunate. And what if I have a counter-proposition? Augustus's smile wavered slightly. What kind of counter-proposition? Eli pulled the leather notebook from his jacket. Augustus's eyes widened with recognition and alarm. You recognize this, don't you? Aurelius Gallagher's personal register. Every dirty secret of the circle documented with obsessive precision. Names, dates, victims. Enough evidence to destroy every family involved. Where did you get that? Augustus's voice lost all cordiality. My wife kept it for 40 years. Insurance against exactly this moment. Marcus Thorne stepped forward, but Augustus stopped him with a gesture. That book won't do you any good. The names in there are of dead people. The circle has renewed itself, modernized. We are untouchable. Untouchable? Eli smiled for the first time. Then, I suppose you won't mind knowing that an hour ago, I sent digital copies of every page to the Financial Crimes Unit, to 3 national newspapers, and to the Attorney General's office. The color drained from Augustus's face. Are you lying? Do you want to risk finding out? The silence that followed was thick as lead. Augustus stared at Eli with barely contained fury, calculating his options. Even if that were true, it changes nothing. I have enough power to bury any investigation. Perhaps, Eli nodded. But you have no power over what is already in the air. He pointed towards the corner of the room, where a small red light was blinking. This conversation is being broadcast live. Investigator Castellanos and his team are listening to every word, every threat, every confession. Augustus turned towards where Eli was pointing. A security camera that he had completely ignored now seemed to stare at him like the eye of an implacable judge. This is illegal. You can't record me without my consent. Actually, I can. We are in a hospital room, private property where I have authorization from the patient, and you have just confessed, in front of witnesses and cameras, that you deliberately caused my wife's heart attack. The room doors burst open. Investigator Rodrigo Castellanos entered, accompanied by several uniformed officers. Augustus Gallagher, you are under arrest for attempted homicide, extortion, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Augustus tried to resist, but the officers quickly restrained him. As they handcuffed him, his mask of control finally crumbled. This is not over. The circle is bigger than me. You can't destroy us. We already did, Eli replied calmly. Your organization is finished. Marcus Thorne tried to slip away discreetly, but other officers blocked his path. You are coming with us too, Mr. Thorne. We have many questions about your banking activities. As the men were led out of the room, Marcus stopped in front of Eli. For an instant, his facade of arrogance disappeared, revealing something that looked like genuine remorse. Mr. Montgomery, what I did at the bank, the way I treated you, it wasn't just because of Augustus's orders, it was because you reminded me of my own father. Eli looked at him, uncomprehending. My father was a station hand. He worked his whole life on other people's fields. He died with nothing, humiliated, forgotten. I swore I would never be like him, that I would have power, respect, money. And in the process, I became exactly the kind of person who had scorned him. Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes. When I saw you today, standing with dignity while I was mocking you, I understood something terrible. I understood that my father had more worth in his little finger than I do in my entire being. You showed me what I had forgotten, that true wealth is not in bank accounts. Eli remained silent for a moment. He had expected to feel satisfaction seeing his humiliator fall, but he only felt sadness for a man who had lost his soul chasing an illusion. Genuine remorse is the first step towards redemption, he finally said. But words mean nothing without actions. Prove it by cooperating fully with the investigation. Help dismantle what you helped build. Marcus nodded, tears still streaming down his cheeks as the officers escorted him out. When the room was finally silent, Eli collapsed into the chair next to Eleanor. All the tension accumulated over days finally found release. Eleanor took his hand with renewed strength. You did it, my love. You finished what I couldn't finish 40 years ago. We did it together, as always. Sam and Renata entered the room, their faces shining with relief and pride. Grandpa, it was incredible. Sam hugged the old man. The broadcast worked perfectly. Castellanos says that with the recorded confessions, the circle is completely exposed. Renata approached timidly. Grandpa, Grandma, I know what I did is unforgivable, that I almost destroyed our family out of cowardice. Eleanor reached out her arm to her granddaughter. Come here, child. Renata approached, tears overflowing. You were manipulated by people who have perfected the art of manipulation over generations. Eleanor spoke with maternal tenderness. What matters is not how you started this story, but how you end it, and you chose the right side when it mattered most. The family hugged in silence. 4 generations of love and sacrifice united in that moment of triumph. Weeks later, Eleanor was discharged from the hospital. Her recovery had been miraculous, driven, according to her, by the joy of seeing her family finally free from the ghost that had haunted them for decades. Castellanos' investigation had resulted in dozens of arrests. The circle was completely dismantled, its members facing charges that would keep them in prison for years. Chloe Davies was promoted to manager of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, replacing Marcus Thorne. Her first official act was to implement new dignified treatment policies for all clients, regardless of their appearance or economic status. Gabriela Fuentes, who had indeed been innocent of any connection to the circle, became a close ally of the Montgomery family. Her genuine kindness had been real from the beginning, and Aurelius Gallagher, Eleanor's father, turned out to be indeed dead. The founder was simply a title Augustus had adopted to give himself importance. Some shadows of the past, after all, were just that, shadows. One golden afternoon, Eli and Eleanor were sitting under the old gum tree on their farm. The same tree where they had married in secret, where they had buried secrets, where they now celebrated a life well lived. Do you know what I'll do with the money? Eli broke the contemplative silence. Surprise me. I am going to create a foundation to help families like we were when we started. Families that work hard but that the system ignores. Families with talent and dignity but without opportunities. Eleanor smiled, her eyes shining with infinite pride. $47 million invested in hope. Your father would be proud, even if he would never have admitted it. My father taught me that money is just fertile soil. What you sow in it determines your harvest. They fell silent, contemplating the fields they had worked their entire lives. Fields that had produced much more than crops. They had produced love, family, legacy. Eleanor spoke softly. Thank you for that morning so many years ago, when a boy with nothing had the courage to fall in love with a girl who had everything, for choosing me when doing so meant losing everything else. For building this life with me, cent by cent, day by day. Eli looked at her, with the same love he had felt from the first moment. No, Eleanor, thank you for seeing in me what no one else could see, for believing in a poor station hand when the whole world was laughing at him. They kissed under the branches of the old gum tree, 2 souls who had weathered storms together and emerged stronger. Because in the end, the true wealth was never in the $47 million. It was in every morning, waking up next to the person he loved, in every sacrifice made for the family, in every moment of dignity maintained in the face of humiliation, in every decision to choose love over fear. Elias Montgomery had entered a bank as a simple station hand and left having taught the world an invaluable lesson. That a man's worth is never measured by his bank balance, but by the weight of his character and the depth of his love. And that is a wealth no thief can steal, no conspiracy can destroy, no time can erode.